So we will start. Good morning and welcome to the forum at Kansas City. The All Souls Unitarian Church welcomes you. I'm Phyllis Westover, a member of the Forum Committee, which plans programs that provide a platform to discuss significant issues, especially those that involve ethical issues in the contemporary world. Dedicated members come and go, but the Forum remains and has operated since 1943, 80 years ago. The program is live streamed on YouTube each week and broadcast on KKFI Community Radio at noon on Thursdays. Our thanks to KKFI for their support of the Forum. For those of you in the audience who are present, please make sure that your cell phones are silenced. Our routine is to have the speaker present for about 30 minutes, then pause to collect an offering in support of the forum. If you are joining us on YouTube, you can post your questions in the chat. We monitor those questions and ask them of the speaker on your behalf after the collection. I am pleased to introduce this morning Kyle Gabrielson, Development and Engagement Manager for the Great Plains Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Great Plains SPCA is dedicated to saving, protecting, and improving the lives of animals in the Kansas City metro area. It serves both sides of the state line. Kyle brings his leadership skills in development and strategic planning to the Great Plains SPCA. He works with the board, staff, volunteers, and oversees all aspects of donor relations and fundraising. He will discuss the many aspects of the organization to fill its mission and how you can get involved. Kyle lives in Kansas City, Missouri, with his partner, 4 cats, and 2 dogs. Welcome, Kyle.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Phyllis, for that warm welcome. I'm honored to be here, following in the footsteps of many others before me. 80 years is a very long time, but that's very cool to be part of those impactful people. Like Phyllis said, I'm Kyle with Great Plains SPCA. We are located in Merriam, Kansas, about a mile from IKEA. Um, but we work on both sides in Kansas and Missouri. So we do a lot of animal outreach um, on both sides. So see, I just have a quick video here at the beginning just to highlight some of what we do. And like Phyllis said, I'm going to talk about ways that we impact animals in the Kansas City metro. That was a commercial we ran a couple years ago. More of the more fun ones. There are, a lot of emotional ties to animals, but um, the mission of Great Plains SPCA is to drive change in our community through innovative programs that promote adoption, outreach, and a better life for pets and the people who love them. We are an independent 501c3, and so that means we are just a nonprofit. That's classification of nonprofit. We serve over 4,000 animals in the Kansas City metro annually, and that's in the greater Kansas City area. We do not receive government funding, being a nonprofit, and we're not affiliated with any national organization. People often think that just because SPCA, they think we're associated with ASPCA, which is the American chapter. We are um, local here, and we don't receive any funding from government organizations like that. Um, we are a no-kill shelter. Our live release rate last year was 98%. Currently, for 2023, it's 99%, which is even better. And that's just calculated by number of adoptions, return to owners, transfers, and then live outcomes. When an animal unfortunately passes away in our care, that contributes to that number. But we are a no-kill shelter. We don't euthanize for space issues or anything like that. We are a small staff of around 50 employees and about 700 active volunteers. When I say active, I mean that's someone who's volunteered at least 1 hour in the last 6 months with us. Volunteering is a huge component of what we do and how we're able to operate on a daily basis. And we couldn't do what we do without the help of our volunteers. We are a small team, and we just we do a lot in the area to help the animals. So um, that's just like our culture, how we operate, and I think it's a good differentiating factor in us compared to other shelters. A lot of shelters are very high capacity, and are really just like working on pushing the animals out. What makes us a little different? We run background checks on people who adopt from us. Last year, we turned away 80 people due to the fact that they had animal violence on their record. That's a cost to us. It costs us money to run these background checks, but at the end of the day, it's to ensure that we make sure they go into a good home. So, some history. We have been around since 1966. Started under the name Animal Haven, being the largest animal welfare rescue in Johnson County. Um, and then we merged in 2011, well, 2003, with No More Homeless Pets. And then in 2011, we became Great Plains SPCA. We just have one location in Merriam, Kansas. We had one other location in Independence, Missouri, and that one closed in 2019 just due to staffing shortages. And we really thought that we were going to be able to focus our mission work more having one location. And animal welfare laws differ a little bit on the state side. So we're just able to focus our energy and our mission work on the Kansas side, but we do a lot of outreach on the Kansas City, Missouri side as well. We contract currently with 9 cities, Overland Park, Bonner Springs, Leawood, Lenexa, and a couple others. And what that means is that we are their animal control. So if there's an animal in the area that is lost and animal control picks them up, they come to us. And that's how we receive our funding. We don't have contracts with them where we receive a big sum of money compared to other shelters in the Kansas City metro. For example, KC Pet Project receives around $4 million a year from the city of Kansas City to be their exclusive animal control. And so that means they have to take in all those animals. And then that's when they run into their capacity issues and they're unable to operate efficiently. Where we contract with these cities and we only receive money if they bring in animals to us. So our funding is a lot lower than other organizations, other larger organizations in the area.
Great Plains SPCA, we take in anywhere from 25 to 40 animals on a daily basis. Just like Chloe here, whose owner was sick with terminal cancer, we're going to take her in and find her forever loving home with our adoption program.
We get a pretty high volume of animals that need some kind of medical help from a variety of sources, either transfers or just coming in as strays.
When they came in, their body temperatures were so low they were too cold to even drink formula. Our staff spent the first few hours just trying to help them survive so that they could make it to foster care.
Some have bad skin conditions. A lot of them, we have no idea how it happened, but we jump right in and do whatever we have to do to take care of them. If we can help an animal medically, if there is something we can do, we are going to do it. We don't give up easily. Some have wounds. Some are pregnant. She was very close to giving birth when she arrived. She was a little nervous, but she just had a very long drive. She was very friendly and sweet. She was in the early stages of labor. I figured she would give birth within 24 hours.
When we arrived to Wyatt, he was lethargic, laying on a sun-covered porch. Took a parvo test with us, thinking that it was possibly parvo. And upon arrival, tested him, and he tested positive. Apparently, previous to receiving a phone call from the owner, 2 days prior, she had a puppy die who tested parvo positive. She relinquished him over to Great Plains SPCA, and from there we took him to VCA emergency vet. Parvo test is negative. As of today, he tested parvo negative and has received a bath and is ready to move on and find his new home.
She's just so relaxed. Luna had her puppies some point between 8 p.m. that night and 4 a.m. the next morning when we came to check on her. The experience has been very rewarding. Our kids have been involved 100%. It makes us really sad to think that she may not be here right now. If Great Plains and us and everyone involved hadn't given her a spot to go, because she's a really awesome dog.
I like to show that video because it highlights the reality of what happens daily in an animal shelter, and not just at our shelter, but across the country. There is an animal population crisis right now, and we're seeing um, it getting worse post-COVID. So during COVID, the shelter was empty because people were spending more time at home and being able to commit time to their animals. But within this year, so the last quarter of 2022 and leading 2023, people have been returning their animals at an unprecedented rate. And that's due in part to going back to the office, um, not being able to commit as much time to their animals. Um, Things like that. Also, the cost of vet care and maintaining an animal maybe is something people aren't realizing. Inflation is impacting everyone. I'm not going to read off of this. I'm going to just keep speaking. Our average cost of care previously, so 2 years ago, was about $750. That's um, vaccines, that's spay and neuter, just general care of the animal. Does anyone have a guess what that number is today? It's 1,500. So each animal that comes in, we average about $1,500 of care while they're with us. Our average length of stay, meaning how long the animal's with us until they're adopted, is around 30 days. Um, we have one dog who she just hit her 2-year mark. She's been with us. We have a couple that have hit 100 days. Um, and it's sad. The cost, like I said, the inflation cost is impacting everyone, and those are costs that we absorb. So, like the video showed, when we have to take an animal to a specialty clinic or something, that's a big expense to us. Heartworm, which is pretty common, especially right now, is spread by mosquitoes. Um, and in dogs, it's treatable. In cats, it's not treatable, but that costs about $1,000 to treat a dog. That's our cost. If you were to go to the vet, it cost you about $3,000, and that's just their markup. So, um, pretty crazy. And then these are just some statistics that highlight the animal sheltering issue presently in the United States. Um, and it's it's not getting any better right now, just because of those reasons that I mentioned. The biggest solution would be spay and neuter your pets, and seek community resources if you are a pet owner that is struggling right now. Reach out to us. We have a lot of programming in place to assist. Um, so what we do at Great Plains, admissions, shelter medicine, so that's vet care, pet adoption, and then the video we just watched really highlighted our hero program. So going out in the community and taking care of those animals that maybe are struggling and giving the pet owners support. So food, vaccines, preventative treatment. Our foster care program is a huge one. So Luna, the pregnant puppy, gave birth in foster care. So those animals are able to be cared for as soon as they're born. And then I touched on volunteering a little bit. I have another slide that kind of shows the impact that a volunteer hour has on us. Um, and something that really makes us stand out is our behavior program. We have a team of several animal behaviorists, both feline and canine, that really do a good job of uh, helping those animals become better behaved so they're more adoptable. Sometimes dogs come in and they're very stressed out and reactive to people or other animals. And so we work with them to ensure that they look they show well in the shelter and people are more prone to adopt those animals. And then from the legislative side of things, um, we've seen a lot of bad recently, but there's also some good that comes out of that. And so when you can see the bad, you can uh, hopefully promote some positive change. Okay, so admissions last year, these were our intake. So the animals that come in either from the street, like stray, animal control brings them in, Good Samaritans bring them in, people surrender them, which is sad, but sometimes it's necessary. We had 2 dogs come in yesterday. Their owner had a stroke. and we're unable to care for them anymore. And so it's unfortunate, but it's, we know they're in good hands when they're with us. Like I mentioned, our length of stay is averaging 27 days, and this was in 2022. Right now, we're sitting around there. But when we have animals staying, 100 days or longer, it really increases that length of stay. And it's like being in jail. You'll see a lot of behavior changes in the animals the longer they're there, and it's really sad. And so we always promote our volunteers, taking them outside, taking them off site to the dog park or to Starbucks or McDonald's. They love cheeseburgers, so um, that's a great way to get involved if you don't want to adopt an animal for yourself, but you want to help out. That's always a fun way to get involved. And then our shelter med program it's just for our animals in the shelter. So we're able to provide really good care for them. Every animal that comes in gets an examination by our vet. We have 3 vets on staff. One is just a dentist, which is really rare to have. And so we get a lot of animals that need tooth extractions or teeth, like deep cleanings. Um, I don't know if any of you have ever had to go to an animal vet dentist. It's expensive. Um, Thankfully, being a vet, he's on staff with us, and so those costs are very much subsidized. But um, it just makes sure that they have a good quality of life. So, and then the big thing that we do, which we're really proud of, is our feral cat program. So there are wild cats in the community, and they thrive in their own communities. But what we do once every quarter, we just did one this month as a TNR clinic. So that's trap, neuter, release, or return, depending on um, how you want to say it. But the TNR clinics, people go out in the community and trap neighborhood cats. We scan them for a microchip to see if they are truly wild or if they're lost. And then if we do deem them to be feral or wild, we spay or neuter. And then we return them to where they were. And that keeps the population down when you do that. And so we did 89 cats in the month of May. I don't have a graphic, but if you go home and look online, you can see like the impact of spaying, 1 or 2 animals and like their potential for um like reproduction. So um that's a big thing we do for the cat community. The Hero program, which is that first video we watched that highlights going out in the community and helping people that can't take care of their animals, is one of the things I'm most proud of at Great Plains SPCA. So we do that community outreach. We go rescue animals that are abandoned in hotels, apartments, under cars, injured animals, and that's both cats and dogs. And we provide education to homeowners who maybe are unaware of how to take care of their pets. We just recently built a fence for someone in Kansas City, Missouri, who had both their dogs chained up in the backyard, and that's not a good quality of life. And so we built a fence for them, and we're teaching the homeowner the benefits of having your dogs free roaming. Um, we go out there once a week and walk them too. So um, animal cruelty is uh, it doesn't carry a huge sentence in the state of Missouri, so it's like a $500 fine, and up to 1 year in jail. But that's if you can make it through the court system. So because I know in those videos it looks inhumane, and it is. There's only so much we can do. We're not legally allowed to take the animals unless there's like active litigation against them. We also do a lot of court case animals. So if you are arrested in one of those cities and your dog is with you, they come to us immediately, and we don't receive any funding for that because um, that's just how it is. I don't make the rules, but we have 3 dogs right now. They're on court hold, and they've been with us for 6 months. And that's cost us about $20,000. And that's money we won't see any of that back. But if they don't come to us, they go. If they don't have a family member or anything, that's why they end up with us. So
At night, we nestle up to our pets. They're part of our family. Sadly, there's a huge population in the KC Metro who don't see their pets quite the way we do.
I done watched people let their dogs literally starve halfway to death till they can got some food to feed them. I'm the person down here in the hood really seeing what's going on. People's dogs are starving.
Every day, our team is out in the streets giving pets living in some of the most heartbreaking situations hope for a better life. Pets like Pepper and her puppies, who had taken shelter in a hollow tree during the coldest days of winter.
I approached up the driveway to the tree, and the mom, she took off southbound and behind the houses. I stayed in the driveway talking to the gentleman that lived across the street, and he told me that the dog used to belong to, I think, his daughter who lived in that house on lawn, and she moved out and left the dog there. She did have more puppies, and when the snow came, we took 3 out that had passed away and put the other 2 back in.
3 of the puppies froze to death, and 2 of them survived.
They were survivors. We took them into our foster program and taught them what it feels like to be cared for and loved. Every day is hard, but we put our own emotions aside, knowing our top priority is to give them a fighting chance. Oftentimes, our hearts tell us to just take the animals away, but we know our best offense is education. Owners begin to trust us, and we then begin to see positive change for the animals.
I think the community needs to know where they can go or who they can call to get help for their pet.
The name Hero for this program is so fitting. We are their heroes, making sure they have shelter, water, food, medical treatment, and if even for only a short moment, we give them love.
I just think how fortunate I am to be able to foster Pepper and her puppies, that they aren't out there anymore.
We are their heroes and you are ours, making programs like this possible for Great Plains SPCA.
Doing what y'all doing, feeding the stray cats, giving me the little help that y'all have given me, little help that y'all give to the neighborhood on y'all time. It's a beautiful thing to me. It's a beautiful thing to me. It lets me know that it's still good people out there.
Make a gift from the heart. Your generous donation will be matched by our life-saving partners at the Petco Foundation to help us expand our outreach services and truly give these pets the life-saving chance they deserve.
that was an older video. Petco is not doing our match right now, but I love that video. Um, just a couple more slides here. I'm not going to read through this, but we did average, or not average, we almost hit 21,000 hours in 2022 of volunteer work, and it's broken down by kind of department, lots of ways to get involved. You don't have to be on site. We have some remote volunteers that do data entry for us, which is really cool. The average volunteer hour, they've done kind of an average like impact. One volunteer hour equates to about $30 of like labor that would be paid for by an organization. So pretty impactful when you look at the grand total of it. I mentioned legislation a little bit. We have done active work in Overland Park, Kansas to repeal the pit bull ban that they had for so long, and that was repealed in 2020, which we're really proud of. Pit bulls are still outlawed in Leawood, Kansas, Kearney, Missouri, and Independence, Missouri. That is. So Buzz Lightyear is my current office dog. He's been with us 60 days, and he is classified under the pit bull bans as a pit bull, which is crazy. And pit bulls are great dogs. So there's a lot of history behind pit bulls, and it's very upsetting that they're still banned. There is an active push in Independence to repeal the ban. So if you're an Independence, Missouri resident, you can sign um, something to help repeal that. And then another big thing we did for legislation during COVID, animal shelters were not considered essential. And so we were unsure if we were going to be able to be open. And so we had staff that were living in the shelters. We turned one of our office wings into like a hotel for staff because they didn't know if they'd be able to come and go. And thankfully, we wrote a letter to Laura Kelly, the governor of Kansas, and she ended up adding animal shelters to that. So we were able to function and then qualify for the those PPP loans that a lot of people received. The state of Missouri is number one for puppy mills, which is where people breed dogs unethically. Um, and so you guys know, a cage just has to be 6 inches taller and wider than the animal to be considered like safe for the animal, which is upsetting. And so, unfortunately, Missouri ranks number one for the 10th year in a row in puppy mills. There's a couple of lists where there's like the horrible 100 in the U.S. and Missouri is most of those. So if you buy a dog from a pet store, um, they are most likely from a puppy mill, with the exception of like Petco and PetSmart, where shelters come in and do their adoptions on site. So if you have any questions, you can always ask to see paperwork from where the animal came from. And if they're hesitant, then it's a big red flag. And then this is the big impact. So I cut that top part off for our admissions, but this just really highlights all of our programming that we do at Great Plains. Super proud of the work we do. As I highlighted, there's always more work to be done. There are many ways to get involved with us, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. I love the work that I do and the community I get to be a part of. So thank you.
Perfect timing. We'll pause for a moment here to do a collection in support of the forum, and especially our staff that helps us with all of the technology that needs to be in support of our speakers. We hope also that there will be people here that will do a donation automatically. You can set that up, and it would be wonderful for the forum. Next week's title is very intriguing: The Thin Line Between Cupcake and Bitch. And that's all I know about it, but I can guess it probably deals with the stereotypes that women may fall into. It will be presented by Joni Wickham. So now we'll turn to our Q&A, and remember our guidelines. Come to the mic to ask your question and speak directly into the mic. If you're back a ways or if you're over to the side, it doesn't get picked up as well. One question per person until everyone has had a chance to ask a question. And we'll turn it over again to Kyle to answer questions for us.
Thank you.
Could you please talk a little bit about your screening and matching process?
Sure. So we have a wonderful adoptions team that really focus on matchmaking. So they look at people's lifestyle, if they have a home or an apartment, if they work from home, if they have a fenced-in backyard, if they have children, what their home lifestyle looks like, to really see what would be the best fit for that animal. And so sometimes we have dogs that we know jump we have our own fenced-in play yards, and if those animals are actively trying to escape or they have escaped, then we would suggest that those people have at least a 6-foot privacy fence. And then we do those background checks on people, anyone who lives in the home, just to ensure that they don't have any animal abuse on their records. Like I mentioned earlier, in 2022, we turned away 80 people from adopting that had animal violence in their background.
Good morning.
Hi.
You referred to having some animals for a court hold. Could you tell us what that is? And
hmm
then a second question I have is, on behalf of the cat lovers in our audience, why is there so little about cats featured in your presentation?
That is a good question. Having 4 cats myself, I don't know why. Um, I'll tell you, our cats right now, people are adopting cats right now like crazy. The dogs are staying so much longer. Last week we had, I think, 9 cats, and we can hold like 60. So, um, cats maybe are easier to take care of in some people's eyes. They don't have to go outside, they can do the litter box thing. Um, the court hold is an interesting situation. We've seen a lot of that. Um, and like I mentioned, if you're arrested in one of those 9 cities, the animals come to us directly, and the animals will not be released, cat or dog, until your court case is over. I'm unsure of the specific litigation that that person is going through, but it's been 6 months, so just unsure if they've maybe not paid bail bond and they're just still in jail. So, did that answer your question? They could surrender them to us if they wanted to, but that's not something they've chosen to do yet.
Good presentation, Kyle.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
I have a daughter in Minnesota who has volunteered for over a decade at a shelter there, and she's very committed to it. I know the kind of work you do, and it's very important.
Thank you.
My question has to do with an interview I heard on NPR just a few weeks ago with an animal ethicist, academic ethicist, who
Mhm.
took the position that, except in rare circumstances, being a dog owner was basically unethical. That dogs need large spaces to roam, and maybe in rural areas they can have that, but for most city dwellers, she took the position that she would no longer become, or when her current dog died, she would not have another dog because she thought it was unethical to keep dogs in the more confined situations that city living more or less requires. I've had dogs all my life. I find that a hard position to accept. But what's your view on that?
That's a good question, and I think confined living, you hit it on the head, is unethical. And so when we look at those kennels that the dogs live in, long term, I think that in it of itself is unethical. But when you look at like the breeds of dogs that do need space, we look at that when we're doing matchmaking. If we have a 110-pound Doberman, we're gonna make sure that they are able to have access to be outside and to run around and get that exercise and those enriching activities for them. Um, Versus, a 12-year-old Chihuahua wouldn't necessarily need that same physical level of activity. Um, I haven't heard the NPR interview. It sounds really good though, so I might have to look into that.
So Kyle,
Hi.
thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You said you're going to have to raise $2.5 million. Can you talk about how you do that?
Yeah, that was not something that I mentioned, but I know it was up there. Myself and one other person are solely responsible for raising that number of dollars, and that's just to continue our mission work that we do every day. Um, a large portion of that comes from private donors, private corporations, sponsorships at our events, um, and then like the video mentioned, we do sometimes receive matches. So we're doing a match campaign, I believe in June, from a private donor where we'll get a big match if we hit that fundraising goal. So the goal is 150,000. So that will automatically be matched if we hit that. And then we do a lot of events. A lot of organizations do private fundraisers for us as well.
We adopted a pet about 12 years ago and or 10 years ago, something like that. Anyway, we've always wondered about the history of this dog. When you when you receive these variety of dogs from variety of sources, excuse me, is there any way to collect information about them and their history, what they've been doing, or we've made up stories about ours, but none of them are true.
Well, sometimes that's all you have to go off of is those fun stories in your head, which is fine. When people come in and surrender their animal for a variety of reasons, we try to collect as much history as we can from them, how they are in the house, how they are with other animals, are they good with kids, so we can then find them a good home. But if they just come in off the streets, we have no way of knowing. Um, I know DNA testing for animals is like a new trend, which may or may not give you some behavior things about the animals, but we try to collect as much information as we can when people come in and surrender. But otherwise, we have a fun time writing biographies based on how they are with us. So
Good morning. I was wondering if you could talk about some of the difficult situations you might be in, what powers you have or don't have when somebody is holding a dog, owns a dog, but you've seen it in a dangerous situation potentially. When can you take a dog? When can't you? And then the second part of this, are there still situations where people use dogs at night and like as guard dogs in yards and things like that?
yeah, it is totally legal to keep your dog on a chain in the backyard. 6 feet or less is what most people do, which is unethical. They're heavy, they hurt the dog. It makes the dog very barrier reactive. So if someone approaches, they get aggressive because they're scared because they can't move. They know they can't move and they don't know what you're going to do. Um, when when we see that, we try to educate them and say, this isn't okay. This is why your dog's acting like this. And then just provide those resources and that education. And sometimes we've gotten people to surrender their animals to us in that situation where they just feel like they're stuck with the animal. And that's unfortunate, but we know they're in better hands when they're with us. Did that answer your question? Not loose, not that I've heard of. We see a lot of people keeping them on chains to like protect their like residences. But the practice of like loose roaming guard dogs is not something I've heard of.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm coming from a very different perspective. I live in Parkville, Missouri. We have a dog house and a cat house in Parkville, and adoptions occur. But because I've been working there for quite a while, volunteering, I should say, the one thing that I noticed, it's when someone is adopting a cat, we have to do a lot of different screenings because you will not believe there are individuals that get great pleasure for killing cats. They adopt them and then they destroy them. So there's a lot of people that are not very well with cats. Dogs don't seem to have that problem, but the cats do. And then the other thing about cats, um, is what should I say? They're potty boxes to get uh, for them to poop. You know what I'm saying? They need specific type of what do we call it?
Litter.
Litter. Thank you. Litter is very expensive. Okay, most people, if you do not have cats, you wouldn't know, but it is very expensive. What I use, and I've told all my friends, and they're using it, is equine bedding. Equine bedding, 40 pounds of equine bedding costs $7. And you can use it over and over and over and over again. But the biggest thing is, like I said, we have 3 cats, all of which came from Parkville Animal Shelter. And they're very healthy and they live a long time.
and because they're so spoiled. I mean, they are, and they get all the kinds of food that they want. I talk to them and they'll say, okay, one of them actually puts a paw down every time I line them up. He goes, I want this. So, yeah, so there's a positive thing, but just for everyone's heads up, there are individuals, a lot of them, that want to destroy cats or just, kill them. Thank you.
And just to expand on that, when we do our adoption screening with people, we have a contract that they have to sign saying they won't declaw a cat. There's a lot of information coming out about how that's detrimental and to the cat's joint mobility, causing arthritis, and then it's also causing a lot of behavioral issues with their litter boxes and stuff. And then when people experience those litter box problems, they come back to us, the cats do. And so we ensure that, like, with all of our animals, that they go into a good home.
Hi. Proud parent of two rescues. One was a medical surrender. One was a puppy mill rescue. Question: the behavioral and training classes, are those open to the public, or are they just for the animals that you have in your shelter?
They are open to the public. So we do, they're 6-week behavior classes, and they focus on the whole gamut of behavior. So if your dog is already trained, we have more advanced classes, and then we have people who just adopted their first dog and they want to do the whole thing. So 6 weeks, those can be found on our website. They are discounted if your animal is from us because we want to encourage, good animal behavior, but those are open to the public for anyone.
Great, thank you.
So from our YouTube audience, Craig LeBeau is asking about the puppy mills and not buying from them. But he said, what do we do with those? They didn't choose to be born. What do we do with these dogs?
I think it's a matter of shutting down these puppy mills. They're an issue. We're seeing, that pet population problem. We've had more purebred dogs this year than in any year reported. People just aren't taking care of them. So, but that's a legislation thing with the puppy mills. So they are businesses, and so they're still legal. And Missouri's the worst place in the United States for them.
You talked a little bit about the ASPCA.
Mhm.
Could you talk more about that? So, what I'm interested in is, do they have state chapters? And then, if they do, what's the relationship of your organization to that kind of organization?
Yeah, so ASPCA is the American Society Prevention Cruelty to Animals. We are not affiliated with that national chapter, so we're just local, and we use SPCA, just because we are also Prevention and Cruelty to Animals. Similar uh, to um, like Humane Society is a national organization, but then there's other organizations that might use Humane Society and things like that. But we are not affiliated with them, and that's just to keep our money and our work local in the area.
So, what is their outreach and their service?
I'm not sure if they have a local office or anything like that. I think they're based out of New York. Um, but I'm sure that they have local offices, but I'm not sure in this area specifically.
Is there any difference of your treatment? Do you serve both sides of the state line? I mean, do you ask if my dwelling is in Missouri and yours is based in Kansas, I gather, would you service or would you send them into a Missourian home?
Oh, like if you come in from Kansas City, Missouri and want to adopt from us?
I'm in Missouri
Mm-hmm.
and you're in Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to maybe adopt an animal. Is that a problem across the state line?
We would welcome you to adopt.
I had a couple more questions. One, who does your marketing
We have a marketing manager
in-house?
in-house, yes.
So it was really nice.
I put this together myself, so if it didn't look the greatest,
It was very nice.
my partner made this slide though, which looks really good.
Good job. So these are services for dogs, for cats.
Mhm.
What about other pets that people have?
We've gotten bunnies, ferrets, guinea pigs, snakes. I got a chicken. Um, and we work with a lot of other rescues. So if we get like an exotic animal, we partner with them. So we got a bearded dragon one time, which we don't have the capability to take care of them. So we will work with a local exotic rescue to do that.
You said that the animal welfare laws differ between Kansas and Missouri. Could you
Mhm.
elaborate on that?
I don't know all the differences between the two, but I can give one example. Feline leukemia, so blood cancer in cats. In the state of Missouri, if the cat comes in and is tested and positive for that, they have to be euthanized. They can't be adopted. But in Kansas, they can be adopted and live a full normal life. So that's one that comes to top of mind. Um, but I don't know the rest of them. Um, like I said, we used to have a location in Independence, Missouri, and then battling those two different set of rules, I think, was a reason that we decided just to focus on the Kansas side. So Kansas's animal laws must be more accommodating, is what I'm thinking.
Were there other questions? My last comment then would be a friend of mine always says the world will be a better place if people had tails.
Yeah, it's a good thought.
We do have a few more minutes. Usually we say, not a lot of comments, but since we have 10 minutes, we can be perhaps more conversational. And one thing that I will throw in, you were talking about space for animals, and I shared with you earlier that over several years, my husband and I adopted 4 racing greyhounds. Well, they do get out, and we had a large yard and race around, but then they come in and they are a 40-mile-an-hour couch potato.
Mhm.
They are just totally happy in a cozy spot, lying down and being petted. So, uh, it varies a lot. Any other comments that people would like to share? Yes, come on up.
I'd like to comment that I heard the NPR interview that was referred to. A woman has written a book about how, although been a dog lover, she believes that dogs need freedom. And so she's advocating the freedom like would be on a farm at least. And so it is a book. I don't know who the author was, but in her book, she does advocate that dogs roam free. So I just wanted to clarify that I listened to it because I grew up on a farm and all of our pets were outdoors. They never were in the house. So I'm familiar with that concept. I would love to see all animals roam free, dogs particularly, and cats, but I just don't know how it would be possible in our society. Do you have a comment?
I think it's hard to detach an emotional connection to animals when they are free roaming. We have, like I said, we have 4 cats, and they could be outside cats. But if a cat gets heartworm from a mosquito, that's not treatable. Dogs, it's treatable. Um, Depending on where you live, there's cars, there's wild animals, and so I would have a hard time putting our dogs they were wild. We got them off the streets. I would feel awful having that I subjected them to who knows what outside, and if they got attacked by something or got hit by a car. Um, so I know that's successful for some people, but where we live, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. And you said you need to raise a whole bunch of money. Had you considered a benefit done by Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer? I'm such a fan. If you could get him to come and charge admission.
That'd be awesome. He probably charges a fee to show up. So
Question, if you see an animal being abused, who do you report this to?
you can call 911. Most cities have a non-emergency line. Most cities also have an animal welfare, animal control officer that you can report it to. It just has to be documented for court purposes. I'd also like to say that one of the biggest ongoing needs we have at the shelter is laundry as a volunteer. We have 4 laundry machines that run constantly. We're always needing towels, sheets, and blankets. So um, it's just it's spring cleaning. Come by. I'll take them from you.
In regards to when you were speaking about the violence against animals on background checks, when you're talking about doing the background checks on the violence against animals, I had an animal that was unfortunately thrown out of a car into my yard during a domestic dispute and had to have it picked up. Can you talk about how animals are the target of abuse in domestic violence cases and how much that comes in and how that's kind of
Yeah,
issue
yeah.
as well in background checks, perhaps?
It definitely is an issue. We've seen several cases where people have had to come in and surrender due to fleeing a domestic violence situation. There are organizations like Rose Brooks. That's a women's safe house where animals are allowed. And we partner with them if people are willing to accept that help. Um, with background checks, we only know if it was something that was reported. So that's I mean, we're doing the best we can in that regard. So I hope that answered your question.
Um, uh, my dog has had some urinary issues, and how do you have? Uh, well, I'm stones and infections, and how common is that? It's a small dog, so and I've been told that smaller dogs are more prone to that, but and female dogs especially. But do you have experience with that at your shelter?
I have to say I'm not a vet, number one, but we do see a lot of that. So with it being female, I would ask if they were fixed, if they're spayed. There's a lot of issues that can come with that. As people and animals age, our diets change. We partner with Hills prescription diet, so that's what our vets prescribe. We have a cat that's got a kidney problem, and so the food that he eats is maybe less acidic or something like that. So I would suggest looking into specialty.
Great result. I just wonder how common it is.
Oh, very. hmm More common in cats, I've noticed, but
Well, if there are no more questions or comments that you want to share, we will thank Kyle very much for his presentation. It's good food for thought for all of us. And if anybody wants to support Great Plains SPCA, I'm sure Kyle would be glad to visit with you about that or to volunteer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everyone is invited to stay for the service at 10:45. Thank you for your questions. Is there a motion? Thank you so much, Phil.
If if you all would like to have a continuing discussion, we can go to the library and talk informally in the library right now.